First time I was exposed to pornography, I was 12 years old. 12 years old, and I was in 7th grade. I was a kid in the 8th grade class, and he had sent me an email with pornographic images in it. And as soon as I opened the email, I knew it was bad, I knew it was wrong, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be looking at it, but the hook had sank in. And it started off as like a small little habit that I kept hidden. Every once in a while I would look at it, kind of sneak away. I was trying to hide it from my parents. And then by the time I'd gotten to 16, 17 years old, it had grown into a full-blown addiction. It was something I was looking at every single night. And I hit a point at around 17, 18 years old where I took a step back, I knew it was wrong, and I realized that I was a full-blown addict. And what was the most terrifying thing for me was to realize that I was completely out of control. I had no control over my addiction. It was something that I needed. I felt like I needed it. It was something that I craved, and I couldn't keep it away from my mind. And it just absolutely terrified me. And it terrified me to realize that I had gotten to this point. And the reason it terrified me so much was because I had a long history in my family of men who had struggled with pornography addiction. We had a long line of our family of infidelity, abuse, molestation. I mean, just so much of this had happened in my family. So being 17, 18 years old and taking a step back, I was realizing that I was following in the same footsteps as a lot of these men in my life. And it terrified me. And I started to try to break free from this addiction. I started trying everything that I could. And I mean, I was not a reader. I did not read books whatsoever in high school. And by the time I got to the end of my high school career, I had started reading books on how to break free from a pornography addiction. I mean, I felt so much shame and unworthiness around this. Even reading these books, I felt a deep sense of unworthiness and shame around that. I kept it hidden from everybody, and it was ruining my relationships. It was ruining my friendships. And it was this deep, dark secret that I wanted to keep compartmentalized in my own little corner, own little box, and as long as nobody knew about it, I was okay. But the reality was I wasn't okay. I felt so much unworthiness and shame around this. And that traveled with me everywhere that I went, and it dramatically impacted the rest of my life moving forward. And I didn't realize it until later. And I remember trying to read these books on how to break free from these addictions, and I remember feeling so frustrated that there was no help. I would read these books and they would say, you just gotta try harder. You just gotta avoid the stimulus. But the problem was I was growing up in an age where it became so much more accessible. Smartphones were coming out. The internet was expanding, and there was more access to it than ever before. So I felt completely helpless. And I just felt like there was no help out there until I was 21. I believe it was the first time I had read a book by Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins has helped millions of people now. But it was really, honestly, the first time that somebody had laid out that your brain can change. And you have the ability and the capacity to harness the power for change. And I was completely blown away. It was the first time somebody had explained this to me, and I then became obsessed with how do I harness this capacity to change? How do I change my own life for the better? Because the reality was, pornography wasn't the only thing going wrong in my life. I had this strong sense of unworthiness, insecurities. I was also 50 pounds overweight. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was unhappy, and I was struggling in all areas of my life. But my biggest one that I wanted to change was my pornography addiction. So from there on, I started digging into research. I started reading books, which I'd never done in my entire life, and I started reading books on how does the brain change? How do we create change in our life? I started digging into personal development, brain science, and health research. I started trying to take advantage of every outlet at my disposal to create change. And one of the first things that I discovered was that you need strong motivations to actually pull you in the right direction, because the problem that I found was trying to constantly resist my temptation was not working for me. That was not working whatsoever, and I would always run out of willpower eventually. It would fall right back to my old ways, because what I learned is that your brain creates these grooves, and the longer we have these habits and these addictions, they create deep-seated grooves in your brain that make it so difficult and challenging to get out. They are literally wired into your brain, and the only way to get out of that is to rewire, which takes time and repetition, and that's the foundation of neuroscience and neuroplasticity as a whole. And so I needed a strong motivation, a strong tool and pull to pull me out of that groove into a new one. And one of the biggest ones for me was freedom. I was terrified at the idea that I had no freedom or control over my own life, and that this other addiction was controlling my life. That was one of the first ones. And obviously the second one was I did not want to go down the same line the men in my family had. I didn't want to leave a line of hurt and relationships torn and family torn apart because of my own sin, because of my own struggles. I didn't want that for my family or for myself. And so that was a really strong motivation for me. And the other piece of the puzzle was I needed to learn a new groove. I had to create a new groove in my brain. And so I became obsessed and addicted to my own personal growth, my own personal development. I started reading so much more, and I started to make myself read because I knew it was going to be the key for me being able to change. I started working out more. I started learning more about health and wellness. I became a doctor. I lost 50 pounds, and that really became the stimulus for me to create lasting positive change. And it completely changed and rewired my life. And now I have the wife of my dreams. I have an amazing career. I get to help people. I get to coach people through so many different life struggles and through health challenges. And it's been a huge blessing for me. And the reason I created this video isn't to tell you this is the exact way that it needs to be done. This is the only way that it needs to be done. But I know that there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of men out there who are struggling with a pornography addiction, who are struggling in silence and don't want to share that they have this struggle with other people because it's shameful, it's embarrassing to talk about this. And I think that's the main reason why I need to create this video. I feel this inward drive that I need to share this with you and tell you about this. As vulnerable as this is and as embarrassing as this is to share this, I know that there are many men out there who need to hear this. And I want you to know that there is hope out there for you. And by sharing my story, hopefully this helps give you insights to how you can start to rewire and reprogram your brain and start to create massive positive change in your life and start to break free and create true freedom in your life. And that's my ultimate goal with this video. So with that being said, I never ask this in videos, and if you think that this could be helpful for anybody that you know, please do me a huge favor and share my story with them. Whether you're sharing the video or just sharing my story in general, please share this with as many people as you can, because there are tons of men out there and even women who are struggling with this. And they're struggling in silence and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to be open about it. And I'll ask that you would share this with them so that it can help them and help their lives as well. And thank you so much for watching and listening to my story.